So you just saw I got the gearbox mounted finally. I got the Pitman arm I needed all made finally. That took a little while to get that thing made. And it finally allowed me to make this last drag link and kind of get the steering finished laid out. I still need to go through and make some like misalignments for this here. I gotta get the proper bolts. All these high misalignments are like 9/16 bolts. So I gotta do some stuff like that, make these Delrin bushings yet. But for the most part, it's at least to a point where I can cycle the stuff now. I can steer the gearbox. I don't have a column yet. You can see the gearbox is mounted. Pretty standard. You see it a lot of times now, just using like some slugs going through the frame. With how skinny this frame was, I was able to set the one on top and the one on bottom and not only have to drill the 2 holes with just the like a 24 volt cordless drill. Took me a little while with a 1-inch drill, but I had to sharpen it a couple times. But it got the job done, it made it through. So I'm probably gonna end up, once I fully weld all these in, make a plate that's gonna run and tie all these in and weld and just reinforce this a little bit more. There's so much force coming off of this gearbox. So that's all stuff that, you know, just adds to the list, things that I gotta get done, slow me up. But I'm now to a point, I wanna get some radius arms on here, because as soon as I get radius arms on here, I can dial in some things a little bit more. And before I get the radius arms in, I really wanted to have a motor and a trans in here to kind of see, I guess for clearance wise, what I'm gonna if I'm gonna have issues. So I don't have another motor here, but I do need to pull the motor out of that truck. That's been in there for like 3 years, been beating it pretty good. I want to go through the bottom end and maybe put some new bottom end bearings in the thing. So I'm gonna pull that motor out, use it to mock up in this one, and put some motor mounts in, trans mount, a trans cross member, get all that stuff in, make some radius arms, and I'll finally be at a point I can be cycling this thing. And that whole process will be kind of what I'm working on next. So another thing I was gonna bring up and cover is I've gotten some question on kind of like parts and what I'm using, like the gearboxes, the spindles, all that type of stuff. And maybe I should have probably put this in like the first video, but here we are. A lot of these parts, for me, I'm looking at going like OEM stuff that's readily available. It's a lot cheaper generally. And in my experience with that truck, I haven't had any issues with a lot of this stuff. So I'm pretty confident with using the same things that I've used on that truck, again on this truck, and pretty much doing things the same way. So some of those things would be like this spindles. These are some Ford Dana 44 spindles. The only thing I've ever done to them is I take a slug and put them through the center like a slit fit, weld them up inside and out. That truck has been running spindles like that for the whole time I've had it. And I take the hubs apart once a season and repack the bearings, and it's been the same setup on that truck for 3 years now. So this is the hub style that it uses. So the Dana 44, they came on like Broncos, the F100s, F250. There's all sorts of different years you gotta look up. But that's what this is gonna get, is same setup, Dana 44 stuff. The gearbox is a Chevy gearbox. It's the same gearbox that's on that truck. This would be, I wanna say they're like late 70s to late 80s, C10. And the reason I went with that style is because they have the metric lines already for the power steering pumps for an L series engine. So that is an LR4, which is a 4.8 liter out of like a 2002 Yukon, I think this came out of. It's been gone through and built, but as far as the accessories and all that, it's just all the stock OEM stuff I got off the wrecked vehicle when I bought it. And it runs right into the gearbox. One of the things is I probably will end up adding a cooler to this one. I've never ran anything more than just the pump and into the gearbox. And the only time I ever noticed the pump having issues is if the truck's really hot, I've been running it really hot, I drive this thing to and from the dunes. So I'll be running it around, and if I drive it straight onto the street, it will kind of struggle at like a stop sign trying to turn right or left. And that's also because I drive the thing home with 8 pounds of air pressure in the tires. I mean, it grows pretty good, but if I sit at the dunes for like 5 minutes, let the thing cool down a little bit, keep the engine running, I can usually drive it home no problem. So kind of wanting to fix that a little bit. I have a pump or a cooler for that. I just have never put it on. I need to get to the point of putting it on. So with this one, I'm gonna end up setting a cooler up right off the bat. Kind of like I said, along the lines of trying to just make this thing better off all the information I know on that one. You know, it gets to the point, the reality is I just never tear that thing apart or have the time. There's always other bigger issues than that power steering pump. So kind of one of those things I just live with all the time. But since this one's getting built, I want to kind of fix that issue right off the bat. Might be a good time to say too, I've had a lot of people ask this. I had one guy actually message me and ask me if this truck is going to be right-hand drive, because he was copying all the stuff that I was doing onto a truck, and he realized he couldn't figure out how it was going to be a left-hand drive vehicle when the gearbox was over on the right-hand side. So for that guy, yeah, that is correct. I had to let him know I'm building this to be a right-hand drive truck. Why? Just because I want to. That's pretty much what it boils down to. So for that guy, I had to tell him, yeah, pretty much everything applies. You just got to now flip it. So everything I've been doing, it'll still work for if you're building a standard drive or a right-hand drive vehicle, but maybe now is the best time to let people know that, because yeah, if you're copying that stuff, you're going to want to do it different. Anyways, that's kind of where I'm at now on this thing. Like I said, I've already gone over, that's kind of what I got to do next is I got to unfortunately start ripping that thing apart. The season is getting close. So I got to get that truck ready, because at the end of the day, priority for me is driving a vehicle versus building one. So once the season starts, I'm going to want that thing running. So for now, I do kind of can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It kind of is motivating me. I need to get that pulled out of there, get it in here. So that's kind of what we'll see next. I don't know how long that's going to take. The temperature's kind of dropping again, so it's getting hard to get out here and work with your hands and trying to take little bolts and all that type of stuff out. So next video, that's what we'll look for. Hopefully motor and trans in this thing, and be working on actually cycling and mocking up all the beam suspension. Thanks for watching.